Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Third Fleet watched the primitive blue planet rotate slowly on his tactical display. The humans had been a nuisance for too long, spreading their chaotic influence across 3 star systems like some kind of cosmic infection. Today, that would end. "Status report," he commanded, his 4 arms working efficiently across multiple control surfaces. "All bombardment vessels in position, Commander," replied his tactical officer. 237 dreadnoughts, each carrying enough plasma charges to crack a moon. The humans won't know what hit them. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The hegemony had conquered 17 species over the past millennium. Humans would be number 18 and arguably the easiest. Their technology was laughably primitive. Their ships cobbled together from salvaged parts and desperation. They had no unified fleet, no grand strategy, just scattered colonies clinging to rocks in space. "Begin the bombardment," he ordered. "Target their major population centers first. Show them the futility of resistance." The first wave of plasma charges erupted from the hegemony fleet like angry stars. Each projectile carried enough destructive force to level a city, and they had fired thousands of them. The barrage would reach Earth in approximately 4 hours, giving the humans just enough time to realize their doom, but not enough to do anything about it. Zethkar settled back in his command throne, already composing his victory report to the High Council. The humans had surprised everyone by lasting this long, but their luck had finally run out. Soon, Earth would be another smoking conquest in the hegemony's ever-expanding empire. 3 hours passed in comfortable anticipation. The bridge crew monitored the incoming plasma storm with professional satisfaction. Some younger officers had even started betting on which continent would be hit first. "Commander," the communications officer suddenly called out, her voice uncertain, "we're receiving a transmission from the human planet." "Put it through," Zethkar commanded, curious to hear their final pleas for mercy. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a human male in what appeared to be a simple military uniform. He looked remarkably calm for someone whose world was about to be destroyed. Behind him, Zethkar could see what looked like an operations center, with other humans working quietly at various stations. "Greetings," the human said with a slight smile. "I'm Admiral Sarah Chen, United Earth Defense Force. I believe you've sent us some fireworks." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Human, I am Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Third Fleet. In approximately 57 minutes, your world will cease to exist. I'm curious why you appear so relaxed." Admiral Chen's smile widened slightly. "Oh, that. Well, we appreciate the light show, but I'm afraid your timing is a bit off. You see, we've been expecting this for quite some time." "Expecting it?" Zethkar's confidence wavered slightly. Intelligence reports had indicated complete surprise. "Commander, let me ask you something," Chen continued, leaning forward slightly. "In all your conquest campaigns, have you ever encountered a species that actually wanted to be attacked?" The question was so absurd that Zethkar almost laughed. "Wanted to be attacked? What kind of madness is this?" "The kind that wins wars," Chen replied. "You see, humans have this peculiar trait. We learn. More importantly, we learn from watching others make mistakes. We've been studying your conquest patterns for decades, ever since you destroyed the Alterian colonies." Zethkar's 4 eyes narrowed. The Alterian campaign had been classified. How could these primitives possibly know about it? "We know about the Catherian resistance, too," Chen continued conversationally, "and the Volan uprising, and the Nexari rebellion. Quite a pattern, isn't it? You show up with overwhelming force, demonstrate your power with a devastating first strike, demand immediate surrender, and then spend the next several years crushing desperate resistance movements." The bridge had gone completely silent. Even the youngest officers had stopped their betting pools. "The thing is," Chen said, "we humans have this saying, 'Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, Shame on me. We've watched you fool 17 different species the exact same way. We decided not to be number 18. Your bombardment will still destroy your planet, Zethkar managed, though his voice lacked its earlier certainty. Will it? Chen asked mildly. She gestured to someone off-screen. Tactical, please show our guest what's happening to their fireworks. The display behind Chen changed to show space around Earth. Zethkar felt his blood freeze as he watched the impossible. His plasma charges, his unstoppable weapons of mass destruction were simply disappearing. One by one, they winked out of existence as if they had never been fired. How? He whispered. Point defense systems, Chen explained. Turns out, when you know exactly when and where an attack is coming, and you've had 20 years to prepare, you can accomplish some pretty interesting things. Those plasma charges you're so proud of, they're just energy. And energy can be redirected, absorbed, or in this case, completely neutralized. Zethkar's tactical officer was frantically working his instruments. Commander, she's right. All bombardment projectiles have been eliminated. I don't understand the technology involved. You wouldn't, Chen said, somehow hearing the report. Because you've never had to develop it. See, that's the difference between us and the 17 species you've conquered. They were alone when you attacked them. They had to figure out how to fight you with whatever they happened to have at the time. She paused, her expression growing more serious. We, on the other hand, have had decades to study your methods. We've reverse-engineered your technology from battlefield debris. We've interviewed survivors from your previous conquests. We've built our entire defense strategy around one simple assumption. Someday, you would come for us too. The bridge was now in complete chaos. Officers were shouting reports of impossible readings, of energy signatures that defied their understanding of physics, of defensive systems that shouldn't exist. But here's the really interesting part, Chen continued, her calm voice cutting through the panic. We didn't just prepare to defend ourselves. We prepared to end this, all of it. Your entire empire, built on fear and overwhelming force, depends on one crucial factor: nobody being ready for you. Zethkar found his voice. You're bluffing. Even if you can defend your world, you have no fleet capable of threatening the hegemony. Don't we? Chen asked. Tell me, Commander, how did your long-range sensors look when you jumped into this system? Zethkar's mouth went dry. The long-range sensors had shown exactly what they expected. A single planet with primitive orbital installations. Nothing that could threaten a hegemony fleet. Stealth technology, Chen explained. Another thing you develop when you know your enemy is coming. We've had ships positioned around this system for months, just waiting for you to arrive. They've been watching you, studying your formations, analyzing your shield frequencies. Impossible, Zethkar breathed. Computer, Chen said, decloak the fleet. Space around Earth suddenly erupted with light as hundreds of human vessels materialized from nothing. They were unlike anything in Zethkar's experience, sleek and angular, clearly built for one purpose, war, and they were everywhere, surrounding his fleet in a perfect sphere of devastating potential. 237 dreadnoughts, Chen said, reading from a display. That's what you brought to end humanity. We brought 893 ships specifically designed to end you. Every single one of them has been targeting your vessels since the moment you arrived. Zethkar looked at his own tactical display and felt despair wash over him. The human ships weren't just surrounding them. They were positioned with mathematical precision, each one covering multiple firing angles, creating overlapping fields of destruction that would eliminate any possibility of escape or effective retaliation. This is impossible, he said again, but the words sounded hollow even to his own ears. 20 years of preparation tends to make a lot of impossible things possible, Chen replied. But we're not done yet. You see, We didn't just prepare to defend ourselves and destroy your fleet. We prepared to send a message." She leaned back in her chair, her expression almost sympathetic. "Commander, you represent everything we humans despise. You prey on the weak, you destroy civilizations for sport, and you've convinced yourselves that might makes right. Today, we're going to teach you something new." "What?" Zethkar asked, though he dreaded the answer. Chen's smile returned, but now it was sharp as a blade. "We're going to teach you what it feels like to be afraid." The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar staring at a blank screen while his bridge crew struggled to process what they had just witnessed. Around them, space bristled with human warships, each one a testament to decades of preparation and an implacable determination to not just survive, but to ensure that no other species would ever face the terror that 17 civilizations had already endured. For the first time in his military career, Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Third Fleet understood what it meant to be completely, utterly outmatched. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered that this was only the beginning. The silence on the bridge of the Hegemony flagship stretched for nearly a minute before Zethkar found his voice again. Around him, his officers worked frantically at their stations, trying to understand how their perfect ambush had become a perfect trap. "All ships, prepare for immediate withdrawal," he commanded, his four arms moving across the control surfaces with practiced efficiency. "Execute emergency jump protocols." "Commander," his navigation officer called out, his voice strained with panic. "Jump drives are not responding. Something is interfering with our hyperspace engines." Zethkar felt his blood chill. Without their jump drives, his fleet was trapped in this system, surrounded by an enemy that had demonstrated capabilities far beyond what their intelligence had suggested possible. The main communications array crackled to life again, and Admiral Chen's calm face reappeared on the screen. Behind her, human officers continued their work with the same quiet professionalism they had displayed throughout the entire encounter. "Having some technical difficulties, Commander?" she asked with what appeared to be genuine concern. "Don't worry, that's entirely intentional. We've been broadcasting a specialized frequency that disrupts hyperspace field generation. Can't have you leaving before the demonstration is complete." "What demonstration?" Zethkar demanded, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. "The one that's going to save countless lives across the galaxy," Chen replied. "You see, Commander, we've done our research. We know that the Hegemony's power doesn't just come from your military might. It comes from fear. Fear of what happens to species that resist you. Fear of the stories that survivors tell about your overwhelming superiority." She gestured to someone off-screen, and the display behind her changed to show a star map. Red dots marked systems across a vast region of space, each one representing a conquered world. 17 civilizations, Chen continued. Billions of lives lost or enslaved, entire cultures erased because they couldn't stand against your military machine. But here's what we realized. Your military machine isn't actually that impressive. It's just that nobody was ready for it. "Impossible," Zethkar protested. "The Hegemony fleet is the most powerful force in known space." "Was," Chen corrected gently. "Past tense. Your power was built on attacking unprepared enemies with overwhelming force. But what happens when someone is prepared? What happens when someone has better technology, better tactics, and better intelligence than you do?" As if summoned by her words, the human fleet began to move. The 893 ships that had been invisible moments before now shifted into new formations with precision that made Zethkar's own fleet coordination look clumsy by comparison. They moved like a single organism, each ship perfectly synchronized with the others. "Let me show you," Chen said. "Tactical, please select one of their dreadnoughts. Something in the middle of their formation." "Admiral, targeting the vessel designated Hegemony 187, a voice replied from off-screen. "Excellent. Commander Zethkar, I want you to watch very carefully what happens next. This is important. One of the human ships, sleek and angular like all the others, suddenly blazed with energy. A beam of pure white light erupted from its forward array and struck one of Zethkar's dreadnoughts with surgical precision. The massive hegemony vessel, designed to withstand the firepower of entire planetary defense systems, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but actually removed from reality so completely that there wasn't even debris left behind. "What? What was that?" Zethkar whispered. "Antimatter lance," Chen explained casually. "Complete matter-energy conversion at the quantum level. Very clean, very efficient. We developed it specifically for dealing with heavily armored targets." The bridge erupted in chaos as Zethkar's officers struggled to understand weapons technology that was decades beyond anything in their databases. Shouts of impossible energy readings and unknown weapon signatures filled the air. "Now that was just one ship with one weapon," Chen continued over the noise. "We have 893 ships, each equipped with multiple weapon systems that your science doesn't even recognize as possible. But here's the really interesting part." The human fleet suddenly shifted again, and Zethkar realized with growing horror that they were being herded. His ships were being moved into a tighter formation, compressed into a smaller space by the precise positioning of human vessels. "We're not going to destroy your entire fleet," Chen said. "That would defeat the purpose. Instead, we're going to send you home with a message. But first, we need to make sure you understand exactly how outclassed you are." "Computer, begin tactical demonstration sequence alpha," she commanded. What followed was the most precise display of military superiority that Zethkar had ever witnessed. The human ships moved through a complex series of maneuvers that demonstrated control of space in 3 dimensions that his own tacticians had never even considered. They wove between his dreadnoughts with impossible grace, their weapon systems targeting and locking onto dozens of ships simultaneously. "Demonstration sequence complete," the computer announced. "All hostile vessels are now targeted and locked. Weapon systems ready." "Thank you," Chen said. "Commander, as you can see, we now have targeting solutions for every single ship in your fleet. We could destroy all of you in approximately 47 seconds if we chose to do so." Zethkar looked at his tactical display and saw the truth of her words. Every ship under his command showed multiple targeting locks, overlapping fields of fire that would turn his entire fleet into cosmic dust before they could even return fire. "But we're not going to do that," Chen continued. "Instead, we're going to demonstrate something else. Computer, begin Phase 2. The space around Earth suddenly filled with new contacts. Hundreds of additional ships began materializing, but these weren't warships. They were massive construction vessels, engineering platforms, and what appeared to be mobile shipyards. "Surprise," Chen said with a smile. "The fleet you're looking at? That was just our expeditionary force. What you're seeing now is our industrial capacity. We've been building ships for 20 years, Commander. Not just warships, but support vessels, construction platforms, mobile bases. Everything we need to take this war to your doorstep." Zethkar stared at the display in growing disbelief. The humans hadn't just prepared to defend themselves. They had prepared to conquer. The industrial capacity he was witnessing represented decades of focused preparation, an entire civilization dedicated to a single goal, ending the hegemony's reign of terror. "This is madness," he breathed. "No single species has ever—" "No single species," Chen agreed. "But we're not alone. Are we? Computer, show him the coalition." The display changed again, and Zethkar felt his world collapse completely. Ships began decloaking throughout the system, but these weren't human vessels. These were ships from the Alterian colonies, the Catherian resistance, the Volan uprising, the Nexari rebellion. Every species the hegemony had conquered, every civilization they had thought destroyed. Surprise number 2, Chen said. It turns out that when you commit genocide, some people tend to hold grudges. We've been in contact with survivor populations from all of your conquered territories for the past 15 years. They've been very helpful in planning this little reception. An Alterian voice suddenly joined the communication channel, speaking in heavily accented but clear galactic standard. Commander Zethkar, this is Fleet Admiral Vorthak of the Free Alterian Navy. We have not forgotten what you did to our homeworld. A Catherian voice followed. Commander, I am Warsinger Kessetha of the Catherian Liberation Fleet. Our dead cry out for justice. One by one, representatives from every conquered species added their voices to the channel. Survivors who had spent decades building new fleets in hidden shipyards. Refugees who had turned their exile into preparation for this moment. Resistance fighters who had never stopped believing that justice would eventually come. You see, Commander, Chen said over the growing chorus of voices from the dead civilizations, you made one crucial mistake. You assumed that conquest meant destruction, but life, as it turns out, is remarkably persistent. And when you give people a common enemy, amazing things can happen. Zethkar looked at his tactical display and saw the full scope of the trap. This wasn't just a human ambush, it was a coalition of every species the hegemony had wronged, united in purpose and armed with 20 years of stolen technology and burning hatred. Impossible, he whispered again, the word becoming a mantra of denial. There's that word again, Chen observed. You really need to expand your vocabulary, Commander, because what you're looking at isn't impossible. It's inevitable. When you build an empire on fear and death, eventually someone is going to be ready for you. She leaned forward, her expression growing serious. Now here's what's going to happen. We're going to release your jump drive inhibitors, and you're going to take your fleet home. You're going to tell the High Council exactly what you saw here today. You're going to explain that humanity and its allies are coming, and that the age of hegemony expansion is over. And if we refuse? Zethkar asked, though he already knew the answer. Then you don't go home at all, Chen replied simply. And we'll deliver the message ourselves, personally, to every single hegemony world, starting with your homeworld. The weight of those words settled over the bridge like a shroud. Zethkar understood that he was looking at the end of everything his people had built, the collapse of an empire that had seemed unstoppable just hours ago. Computer, release jump drive inhibitors, Chen commanded. Commander Zethkar, you have exactly 10 minutes to get your fleet out of our space before we change our minds about letting you live. Why? Zethkar asked desperately. Why are you allowing us to leave? Chen's expression softened slightly, and for a moment she looked almost sad. Because unlike you, Commander, we don't enjoy killing. We do it when we have to, but we don't enjoy it. Today you learned that your empire isn't invincible. Tomorrow, your leaders will learn that their choices are surrender or annihilation. We're hoping they'll choose wisely. The communication ended, leaving Zethkar alone with the knowledge that he was about to deliver the worst news in hegemony history. Around him, his officers worked to restart their jump drives, their hands shaking as they realized how close they had come to complete destruction. As the hegemony fleet prepared to flee back to their own space, Zethkar took one last look at the coalition forces surrounding them. 893 human warships, supported by construction vessels, mobile shipyards, and fleets from 17 different species who had supposedly been conquered and destroyed. For the first time in his life, Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Third Fleet understood what it meant to be afraid. The High Council chamber of the Hegemony homeworld had never been designed for panic. Built from black stone quarried from conquered worlds, its soaring arches and imposing columns were meant to project eternal strength and unwavering dominance. Today, Those same walls echoed with something the hegemony had never experienced before. Genuine fear. High Chancellor Vexthon, supreme leader of the hegemony for over 3 centuries, listened to Commander Zethkar's report with growing disbelief. The commander stood at attention in the center of the chamber, his forearms rigid at his sides, his voice steady despite the impossible things he was describing. "You expect us to believe," Vexthon said slowly, "that this primitive species not only defended against our most powerful fleet, but somehow managed to unite every conquered civilization in the galaxy against us." "High Chancellor, I can only report what I witnessed," Zethkar replied. "The humans had been preparing for our attack for decades. Their technology surpasses ours in every category. Their industrial capacity rivals our own. And they are not alone." Military advisor Krentok, veteran of 40 conquest campaigns, stood from his seat. "Impossible. Our intelligence networks would have detected such massive preparations. No species has ever successfully hidden fleet construction on that scale." "With respect, advisor," Zethkar said, "our intelligence networks have never encountered stealth technology that advanced. The humans made our sensors useless. They've been building an invasion fleet in our backyard for years, and we never knew it existed." The chamber erupted in angry voices as council members argued over the implications. Some demanded immediate retaliation, others called for defensive preparations. A few suggested that Zethkar was lying or had suffered some kind of mental breakdown. High Chancellor Vexthon raised one massive hand, and the chamber fell silent. "Commander, you say they allowed you to leave? Why? What purpose could this serve?" "They want us to surrender, High Chancellor. They're giving us the opportunity to end this peacefully before they bring their full force to bear against our worlds." "Surrender?" Defense Minister Kalthek's voice dripped with outrage. "The hegemony has never surrendered to anyone. We are the apex predators of this galaxy." "Were," Zethkar corrected quietly. "Past tense, Minister. What I saw out there changes everything." Before anyone could respond, the chamber's communication system activated. The massive central display flickered to life, showing not the expected status reports from across the Empire, but the calm face of Admiral Chen. Behind her, the same operations center that Zethkar remembered from his encounter at Earth. "Greetings, High Council of the Hegemony," she said with professional courtesy. "I hope Commander Zethkar delivered our message clearly. My name is Admiral Sarah Chen, speaking on behalf of the Coalition of Free Worlds." Vexthon rose from his throne, his massive frame imposing even on the display. "Human, you dare interrupt a session of the High Council? Your species will be extinct within the week for this insult." Chen's expression didn't change. "High Chancellor, with respect, that's exactly the kind of thinking that got you into this situation. You see threats where you should see opportunities, enemies where you could have allies. Today, we're here to discuss terms for the peaceful dissolution of your empire." The chamber exploded in outrage. Council members shouted demands for immediate military action, threats of total war, promises of complete human extermination. Through it all, Chen waited patiently, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos she was witnessing. "Are you quite finished?" she asked, when the noise finally died down. "Because while you've been making threats, my colleagues have been rather busy." The display split to show multiple views of space around different hegemony worlds. In each view, massive fleets hung in orbit like silent threats. Human ships, Alterian vessels, Kytherian dreadnoughts, and ships from a dozen other supposedly extinct civilizations surrounded every major hegemony stronghold in the galaxy. "How?" Vexthon whispered, his voice barely audible. 20 years of preparation, High Chancellor. 20 years of building ships in hidden shipyards, training crews in secret bases, and planning for this exact moment. While you were conquering new worlds and patting yourselves on the back for being unstoppable, we were learning everything about you. Your patrol routes, your communication frequencies, your defense strategies. Everything. Military advisor Krentok studied the tactical displays with professional interest, despite his shock. The logistics alone, coordinating this many fleets across this much space, is complicated, Chen agreed, but not impossible when you have the motivation. And believe me, advisor, nothing motivates like the desire to prevent more species from experiencing what yours put the others through. What do you want? Vexthon asked, his political instincts taking over despite the overwhelming situation. Simple, Chen replied. Complete and immediate ceasefire across all hegemony territories. Withdrawal of all occupation forces from conquered worlds. Reparations to survivor populations, and dismantling of your military infrastructure under coalition oversight. Unacceptable, Defense Minister Kaltek snarled. The hegemony will never— Minister, Chen interrupted gently, let me show you something that might change your perspective. The display changed to show a single hegemony dreadnought floating in space. It was one of their newest vessels, the pride of the fleet, bristling with enough firepower to level a planet. This is the HSV Dominator, currently stationed at your Kepler base shipyards. Magnificent ship, really represents the pinnacle of your military engineering. As they watched, a barely visible distortion in space near the dreadnought suddenly erupted in white light. The antimatter lance that had so casually destroyed Zethkar's ship at Earth now repeated its performance, and the Dominator simply ceased to exist. That was fired from a human stealth ship positioned 3,000 kilometers away, Chen explained conversationally. Your sensors never detected it. Your shields never activated. Your crew never knew they were in danger. The implications hit the High Council like a physical blow. If human ships could appear anywhere, strike without warning, and destroy their most powerful vessels with a single shot, then every hegemony installation in the galaxy was essentially defenseless. Now multiply that by the 8,000 ships we have positioned around your various strongholds, Chen continued, and you begin to understand your situation. We don't want to destroy you, High Chancellor. We want to stop you, but if you force our hand, we will end your empire in a matter of hours. High Chancellor Vexthon found himself in the impossible position of negotiating from complete weakness. Everything his people had built over centuries of conquest hung by a thread that these humans could cut whenever they chose. What guarantee do we have, he asked slowly, that you won't simply destroy us after we surrender? Chen's expression softened slightly. None, I suppose. You'll have to trust us, which, given your history with conquered species, probably seems like a foreign concept. But here's the thing, High Chancellor. We've had the ability to destroy your homeworld for the past 6 months. We chose not to. We've had your entire leadership under surveillance for years. We chose not to eliminate you. We're offering you the chance to end this peacefully because we believe in redemption. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Your people aren't evil, High Chancellor. They're just following a system that rewards conquest and expansion. We're offering you the chance to build something better, a civilization based on cooperation instead of domination, trade instead of tribute, mutual respect instead of fear. And if we refuse? Vexthon asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Then we'll do what we have to do, Chen replied simply. We'll dismantle your military infrastructure by force, liberate your conquered territories, and establish coalition protectorates over your core worlds until you learn how to play nicely with others. The chamber fell silent as the weight of the decision settled over them. For centuries, the hegemony had been the dominant force in their region of space. They had never faced an enemy they couldn't overcome, never encountered a problem they couldn't solve with overwhelming military force. Now, They were facing the consequences of building an empire on fear and violence. "We need time to consider your proposal," Vexthon said finally. "Of course," Chen agreed. "You have exactly 24 hours. After that, we begin liberation operations whether you're ready or not. The difference is whether you're helping us transition to a peaceful galaxy or trying to stop us from creating one." The transmission ended, leaving the High Council alone with the most important decision in their species' history. Around the chamber, council members sat in stunned silence, trying to process the reality that their invincible empire had been outmaneuvered by the very people they had planned to conquer. Military advisor Krentok was the first to speak. "High Chancellor, from a purely tactical perspective, we have no choice. They've achieved strategic superiority in every measurable category. If we fight, we lose everything. If we surrender, we at least survive." "Survive as what?" Defense Minister Kalthek demanded. "As slaves to these humans and their coalition?" "As a chance to build something better," came a quiet voice from the back of the chamber. Council member Ithara, the youngest member of their governing body, stepped forward. "Maybe it's time to admit that our way wasn't working? Maybe it's time to try theirs." High Chancellor Vexthand looked around the chamber at faces that reflected his own uncertainty. They were leaders of the most powerful empire in known space, and yet they had been reduced to choosing between surrender and extinction by a species they had dismissed as primitive. "Very well," he said finally. "We will consider their terms." But privately, he already knew what the decision would be. The humans had demonstrated something that the hegemony had never encountered before, an enemy that was not only stronger, but also wiser. They had turned the hegemony's own methods against them, united their victims, and offered mercy where none was expected. For the first time in his long life, High Chancellor Vexthon began to wonder if perhaps it was time for the hegemony to learn what it meant to be partners instead of predators. 24 hours later, the hegemony officially surrendered to the coalition of free worlds. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And somewhere in a command center on Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen allowed herself a small smile as she watched the galaxy's most feared empire take its first steps toward becoming something worth respecting.